My name's Aero. You're now tapped in with passtheaux. Different levels of paisa. So there's paisa and there's paisa.
See, that's how you started. See, we just started. It's interesting that you can make any equipment sound the way you do, bro.
Well, I mean, not every equipment, but it's got to be decent.
Welcome to Pass the Aux. My name's Peter Rico, your lovely host. Can you introduce yourself, my friend?
My name is Aero. I'm the owner of Aero's Independent Studios in Albuquerque.
Albuquerque, we out here in New Mexico. A lot of you didn't know I was out here in New Mexico, huh? But in my time here, I had the humble privilege of being able to work with this man. We just, me and Young Jello just dropped our West Side music video, and the song was mixed and mastered and recorded by our boy right here.
Recorded right here in this room.
In this very room, we recorded that, man. And so, first question for you, Aero. How did the idea for Aero's Independent Studios start?
You want the long version or the short version?
What you want to give me?
So I used to work a 9-to-5. I used to work in a semiconductor field, and I was there for a while, and I kind of always wanted to run my own business. And I was doing music as a hobby at the time. I was actually a rapper, and you know, we had put together a couple of CDs, and I went and I got a kiosk one day at Cottonwood Mall, and this is back in the day. I'm dating myself now, but this is gosh, when CDs were popping. So we went and we sold all our CDs out that we had, and I was like, well, this is pretty cool, you know. So it was just a temporary thing, but it kind of stuck with me that, you know, hey, I could probably run a business in music somehow, you know. So I'd kind of, you know, got this idea, and I wrote out a business plan, and you know, in those business plans they make you think of everything, you know, and I was like, okay, I'm finally ready, and I popped out, saved some money up, opened up, and I opened up in Cottonwood Mall, and I actually had the studio in Cottonwood Mall. But I wasn't after like the independent music scene at the time. I was kind of like trying to follow like the American Idol craze at the time. So I was like, you know, looking to discover the next artist, you know, and I was just gonna, you know, kind of attach myself to the projects and facilitate the music and, you know, get some royalties off of it later. That was my plan. And nothing in the business plan that I wrote aligned with what I was doing. Like, it just, you know, within 3 months I had almost spent all the money I had.
Wow.
I actually got kicked out of the mall because the selling cycle for me to address the American Idol crowd was longer than I expected, right? So with a rapper, you know, they can just show up, pop in the studio, and you can have a song done in an hour. But when you're dealing with that crowd, you have to convince them that they're capable of it. You have to, you know, convince the parents that they're capable of it. They both have to have the dream. They both have to, you know, it takes weeks, months, you know, to do that. And then, you know, after a while and after they think about it, they're like, you know what, we should try it, you know. So what was cool is by the time I got kicked out, I had about 3 or 4 that had decided that they wanted to try something in music. At the time, I didn't have a place for the studio, so I was, you know, out of business for like a month, and then I got a spot over by UNM, and it was a brand new ball game. It was basically, you know, just popping up a studio in the middle of the city, you know, without the walk-up traffic that I was hoping for from the mall. So I had no money for marketing. I had, you know, so I was like, all right, well, I have these clients that are coming and following me over here, so I'll start with them. And we started making projects for them. And as we did that, you know, more and more of the rappers, mixtapes were big at the time. So mixtape rappers started kind of finding us, and, you know, we would get word of mouth and more clients. And it was rough that first year outside of the whole first year was rough, but that was tough. That was like my worst financial year ever.
Wow. What year was it?
2011.
Wow.
2011. So, yeah, it was weird, but I had invested everything I had, in the business. And, you know, everyone was telling me before, no, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, you know. And,
you have to.
so I was, you know, basically at the bottom, you know, and I was like, well, I'm just going to try as hard as I can from this point forward just to make sure that, you know, that I make it work and it's successful. So it was a slow grind, but eventually ended up here, so.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So how many locations has Aero's Independent Studios had?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's my 5th location.
Let that be a lesson, y'all. The first one isn't always going to work. The first one isn't always going to work. What would
Dedication.
What's some advice you would have for independence and budgeting? Because you've mentioned that multiple times.
So if you mean like just starting out a business in general?
Yes, like because you have to have your LLC for things.
Oh,
you have to invest in a building. You have to invest in merch. You know,
well,
what could you say about
the
budgeting?
LLC? I mean, other than, you know, just protecting yourself from, you know, lawsuits that could, you know, hit your business, really just makes it real for you. Right. You know what I mean? Like you've committed to yourself and said, okay, I'm gonna start this business. This is my business name. I'm going to register it, and now you get this piece of paper, you know, from the state that says you're an LLC. But what does that mean? I mean, you're still you. You're still doing what you were doing, you know, so it kind of makes you real for you. The other things you got to do is you got to, you know, register with the federal government. You got to get your EIN. As far as the budgeting goes, I would say do a business plan, even though, you know, you're the only one that's ever going to really read it, and, you know, but you start understanding how things are going to work, and there's some things that you might not have thought of that it brings out. But whatever you think you're going to spend, double it.
That's good advice.
Double it.
That's good advice.
So if you end up and it says, okay, I need 30,000, you need 60,000.
Okay.
So, and that's just the way it is.
That's amazing. That's incredible insight,
Yeah.
man. This is what I wanted to pick your brain about, you know, because I'm inspired by this studio. This place is absolutely beautiful. My next question was, what's up with the wall in your studio? You have these CDs up there. Can you explain the story?
Man, so originally I just wanted some decorations in the studio, and I was like, you know, you go to these other studios and you see like the gold records up there, and you see, you know, all the accomplishments that they had, you know, producing on some of these projects. I was like, well, I'm gonna start something here for the locals, you know, because we, you know, you could tell they're all CDs. So at the time, you know, people were proud of their projects, and, you know, we're trying to push them out, and, you know, I'd make them a plaque and I'd stick it on the wall. So we did that pretty religiously that was until like Studio 3 or 4. Right. Because I didn't have the wall space to do it. But after that, it became a thing where, you know, people would be like, I want my plaque on that wall. And it would drive clients. You know, it would make them, because, you know, being an artist, I'm sure you know, like once you put a song out, you know, now you want people just to experience the music, right?
Yep.
Well, when that doesn't happen, especially in a place like Albuquerque, people start feeling defeated. They start feeling like, why am I doing this? You know, they second guess themselves. Maybe it's not good. And it's really not that. It's just, you know, there is a specific market that will consume you and listen to you, and you got to find them, right? Here in Albuquerque, you know, you're 1 degree of separation from the next rapper. So there's no fans out here, you know, and it's probably like that in most places where there's not a whole bunch of fans, because, you know, you put a song out and you're saying to someone else, hey, listen to my song, and their cousin or their brother or their, you know, friend is a rapper. You know what I mean?
Right.
What you get out here is a lot of apathy. You get a lot of, okay.
Oh, yeah, you rap.
That's cool, yeah, you know, cool. But they're not your fan. You know, so the plaque thing was kind of like incentivize some of the rappers out here to, you know, aspire to do other things, you know, to keep it moving. And, you know, in turn, they'd come to me to record. So you know
That's
what I mean.
a creative
so
way to inspire the people.
Yeah, I do a lot of indirect marketing. So I don't market directly. I don't pop out and say, oh, you got to come to my studio. You got to do this. It's a lot of word of mouth, but it's a lot of, okay, I'm gonna put this project out. These are the people that are attached to it. And then they see my name and they're like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? So they hear it from a friend or so they hear it from a friend or they hear the song that was done and they're like, where did you do that at? And that's how I get a lot of my clients. Because out here in Albuquerque, it ain't real until your friend or your family has used that service before you use it, you know? Otherwise, you're just saying, okay, here's some options. I'm just going to go off price, you know, or whatever. But if you have somebody that's referring it, then that's been the biggest blessing, honestly, to maintaining a successful business is just be good at what you do. You don't have to be the best. Just be good at what you do and be 100% with your clients.
Listen to this man.
Yeah, so.
Make sure you're listening to what this man just said. Yeah. Just be good at what you do. Next question. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in California.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I was born in a city called Stanton. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
Oh, that's crazy.
In an apartment about 3 miles from Disneyland.
That's crazy.
Yep. And so we moved all around that area. I lived in, try not to cuss, hey, Cypress. I lived in, let's see, Pomona.
Oh, P-Town. Shout out P-Town.
Watts for a minute.
Wow.
We just kind of hopped because, my mom and my dad were young, so they kind of hopped around
I know how it goes.
The area, exactly you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
I'm from California myself, man.
Yeah. So, and then both my parents' families were out here.
Right.
So, I don't know, things got too stressful or whatever, but they just ended up out here, so.
Right. And I think what I always say about being out here is like New Mexico is very relaxed, very chill. But when you bring that California pedigree, like it really makes an impact on the people from the natives from here. And now I'm doubling down on that, knowing that you're from Cali as well. That's amazing. I just learned about that right now, guys. So that's amazing. Yeah. It stands to show it, man. What can you say about that professionalism, creating that professional environment?
Well, I mean, to me, it's basically creating a professional vibe where people can experience, music production at a certain level that's beyond what they're capable of in their room or in their house or at their friend's house. That feels like they're working, on their path. They're walking their path towards something greater. Right. So it's, I'm just, I'm not a big time studio, and I don't have the big boards or anything like that, but, getting by with plugins like we were talking about, stuff like that, like we can make stuff sound pretty good, and I'm not breaking anybody's bank, to do it. So I found that niche, that area, and that's what kind of made me successful. And out here is, I wasn't charging $200 an hour and, right. Stuff like that. You could get in for, $40, $50 and do what you need to do and have a, good sounding track. So,
And that's very great for the label of the title of your business, Independent Studios.
Yeah.
And that's a very rare thing. I very rarely hear people title themselves independent because everybody wants to be big time. Everybody wants to be the next Interscope.
Yeah, see, and that was done on purpose because when we were coming out, in music, it was all about labels, right? So they're basically, so it's like a form of a gang, but it's not, gang related. It's, but it's a crew, it's a group, you know what I mean? And this label is, the only way you can succeed is being with this label. That used to be the selling point for these labels out here. And I started in a label, out here, and all it did was isolate you from fan bases and working with other people and, a whole bunch of different things. So there was all these pockets of kind of quasi labels that would, vie for supremacy out here. And I just thought early on, I was like, I don't want to be king of the short bus. You know what I mean? Like, like I want want to be, out in the industry. I want to be, so, and at the time, luckily for me, like the independent game was ramping up.
Right. It was like the beginning of it.
So it became, easier for people in my situation to make money and control their own masters and control their own marketing and stuff like that. So it's basically limited to your resources and the power of your imagination. You know what I mean? So we're not trying to shop to a label any longer. Like that's not what we're after. So that's why the independent kind of hit home at the time,
We're in Aero's independent studio in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And this man right here is already a master with the mixing, already a master with the recording. Very great. I've recorded music with this man multiple times. But now to hear the business side of you, that's something I didn't expect to get from this interview. It's incredible to hear how focused you've been in creating this environment that's so been beneficial to me directly, bro. So I say thank you, and I'm hoping that a lot of y'all independents out here, because that's what passtheaux is for, can come work with this man right here.
You can send me your stuff too. If you're not in Albuquerque.
Let's get it. Link in the description. So, who are some of your early musical influence? You talked about you were an artist, you were a rapper. Who's some of the early ones?
All right, so early on, I just love music it was real big East-West Coast beef when I started. So everything was East-West Coast. So
wow.
My role at that time was I wanted to be Dre or DJ Premier, or you know what I mean, like from both coasts, and they were just producers. They were just making the beats. So when I opened the studio in Cottonwood Mall, that was my contribution. Was I'm gonna run everything and I'm gonna tie everything together, but I want to make beats. I want to, do that part of it, And so those were, the influential ones to me. And then that was, right about the time that the mixtape game started and everybody was using mixtape beats. And, I'd spend a week making this beat and making it perfect. And some mixtape rapper would come in and buy it and trash it in an hour. Or maybe it was good, but, and I was like, it took me all week. And you're just going to spit some... whatever came to the top of your head at that moment on it. I'm like, oh, this isn't it. So.
Come with your bars for the producers, guys. The producers put their heart in this stuff, man. Don't trash the beats. Don't trash the beats.
Well, and there are levels to it, right? So, I mean, the more quality you put into it, the better it gets. Right. You know what I mean? So, a lot of my business is made off people that just walk in and spit bars to whatever they have, which is cool, you know what I mean? I've heard some good stuff like that, but quality does matter. So
right. I have a lot of respect for what you're doing for building this culture here, because there isn't a lot of culture in New Mexico. It could be pretty barren out here sometimes.
Well, I think kind of to agree with you, but at the same time, kind of explain a little bit more about New Mexico, just because I know it so well now. There's plenty of culture out here.
Amen.
The industry is lacking out here. There is no music industry out here. So out here you have about 5 roles tops. You have, artists, and you have engineers, and you have producers and DJs and promoters, and that's about it. There's no there's no management, there's no real marketing, there's no real upper level music moguls. There's nothing like that out here. So everyone's trying to get connected to those people outside of the state. But the culture, everyone has this, what they believe New Mexico should be identity wise. And it's influenced, a lot by the region and, everything we have. But we will never be able to say, hey, that's New Mexican rap music without having it output to the nation and people validate it and say, okay, yeah, that is from that region.
That's wild.
Yeah. So even though it's here already, it's until it bubbles or anything bubbles from this region, it's not going to be considered New Mexico music until someone from the New York says, hey, oh, they did that in the Southwest. They did that. And you know what I mean? You can tell. The closest we get is, Houston.
Hey,
you know.
okay, so there's
Yeah,
opportunity.
so
I
there's-
hear opportunity when you say all that.
Yeah, I mean, So that was my initial plan was, I could grow this, I could scale it based upon how successful we were, so, but it's taken a while.
Oh, of course. And
taking a
that's
while.
the tough thing about independence is that it's instant gratification is not the game for independence. You cannot you have to build it. You have to enjoy the destination is the journey. You have to enjoy your time.
You got to
with it.
do it for the love first. Yeah.
And that's why
Yeah.
I've come to love that independent grind. Is because I do love the journey. I do love getting to know somebody like you. Having to know my mixer, there's a lot of there was an artist named Bumbasy who we met. He's done work with a lot of major artists. He's done work for the E Network and stuff like that. And he said that sometimes it just doesn't click when you meet. When you're plugged in through the industry, sometimes it leaves you as an artist like despondent. And that's the stuff that as an independent, you can reduce that. You can control that more so that you can love what you do. You can create some art and be an artist.
Yeah. And, case in point, there's a industry producer that I work with. He lives in Vietnam.
Whoa.
And he was from LA, but, and he got to sit in the big rooms, but it was always through somebody who wanted to take the cut to put him in that room, right? So he was the talent, but because he had to pay someone to get into some room or someone had to take a cut of what he would make in those rooms, he'd end up getting chump change when he was the one that was supposedly, making the music.
He's the
way it's
talent
supposed
and
to
he's
be.
getting the chunk change.
Yeah, so he took that, what he did, and he went to overseas, and they pay him directly.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean? So he bypassed that whole Hollywood, LA scene where everyone had their hand out just to cut him in, and went and did his own thing over there, and he was making records with Teddy Riley and Michael Jackson, and yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow,
but that was
wow,
the way it was
wow.
cut. Yeah. But to get into those rooms, you had to know people.
Right. And the people better not be demanding. That's crazy. 2025, we need to kill all that, guys. Come on. You just make the connection.
There's less power, but now that the independents are rising, you know what I mean? Hollywood has less power over what's happening, and the industry has less power over it. But
so beautiful.
they still have power.
Thank you for the time. We're
Yeah.
going to wrap everything up here with a fan question.
Okay.
We were able to get a fan question for you. You got some people tracking with you. Aero's Independent Studios on IG. So go ahead and follow that. There's ways, we get a hold of them.
Yep.
I got this nice little fan question for you.
Okay.
What's the word with maple chicken waffle? Where's the new songs with maple chicken waffle?
Maple chicken waffle. Okay. So maple chicken waffle is used to be a group of 4 people. Now it's a group of 2 people, and they're just kind of this crazy eclectic rap group they're really different. You know what I mean? They're cool. It's like, it reminds me of like some music, like, I don't know if you're probably too young to remember the Far Side, but
I love the Far
okay,
Side,
well,
dude.
they remind me of the Far Side a lot, with the stuff
That's
that
incredible.
they do. And it's just because they have like the different variations, and they're just not afraid on the mic. They have different songs and topics, and yeah, so they're a pretty cool group. So
Dude, that's incredible. Aero,
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for sitting down with us. That's
No
the
problem.
episode right there. Clap it up. Thank you, Aero. Aero's Independent Studio.
appreciate it.